So, as Mr. Garib said already, the threat surface and threat landscape is actually evolving in a rocket speed pace. Probably when we're talking, I don't know, a few 100,000 of new viruses, trojans, and malwares being released to the market and started to do the harmful job. So, what it means for all of us, like consumers, like users, like people who interact with the internet and anything related and connected with it every single day, every single moment. And actually not us, it's all our family members, our friends, and anything we do is actually digital. We need to build very simple and a very practical way how we understand the threats. If you forget for a second about the complex, it's very high tech, it might be delivered by the group of professionals with the bad intentions. Just think what it means to you, and my next 20-minute speech will be more about to equip you with a very practical tips and advices, how to not become a victim of bad guys, how to not expose yourself and set yourself in trouble, and that stuff is pretty simple. All right, so first of all, is anyone using public Wi-Fi? Of course, it's free. It's good stuff. Every time we in a Starbucks coffee or we're in an airport, we always, what we do for the first thing? We go and chasing the free Wi-Fi. When you're on a free Wi-Fi, just build a habit to use it for something what is not expose you. Means once you connect it, don't make any logins to your bank. Don't make any logins to your email. If your email is already within your mail client, you're pretty safe. You're right. You're not exposing your login and password. So don't do transactions. Don't expose your credentials for wherever logins. And make sure you're very clear about whom you connected to when you connected. If you see that Wi-Fi hotspot offering you to reconnect and providing you pop-up screen again when you need to enter something, the most likely it's a red signal. The most likely it's a spear phishing trick where somebody is doing that. Always look around how many people using that hotspot around you when you're in a cafe. Look for suspicious people as well. And once again, don't enter your credentials wherever you've been asked. You better ignore free Wi-Fi if it's keeping asking you to enter some sensitive information. Passwords. How many of you have the same password for all the social networks and emails? Fair enough. You got to stop it immediately. Because, in fact, first of all, are you familiar that passwords can be hacked using the computing capabilities? The specific networks, botnets, can actually hack it on a programmatic way. And it doesn't matter how your password is strong, it's just a matter of time when it will be hacked. So the best practice is very simple. Sorry. Okay. Let me go for that. All right. So make sure your password is long enough. Play with the multiple cases. Try to avoid creating your password with the phrases or words which will be directly associated to you. For example, if you're making your password saying student of the UOB, likely it's a not good password. If people see in your Facebook profile you're a student of UOB, the most likely they will try to do it even without computing capabilities to check that. Or play with that. If there's been number associated, they likely will trace the number when you join university or when you're expecting to graduate. So make sure you make it strong enough, make sure you make it sophisticated, better make it randomized, and make sure you will not keep using the same password you used to have before, just simply adding, I don't know, 111 at the end. It's still bad password. And if once ever any account, for example, Skype, many people, or WhatsApp, or Viber, if any of your account been compromised, make sure you will never ever use that password. Very important facts for you to understand that password hacking is a pretty doable thing is if you just think for a second, the well-done password, which is randomized, beta created by password generator, like randomized compilation of the latest numbers and a different type of commas and question marks, it's likely even for super powerful computer or network, it will require quite a significant time to hack it. Means you will have your grace time when you change the password for next time, which we recommend to do it once a month if you can, if not once every 3 months. So you will be pretty much on a safe zone. You minimize your chances that somebody will compromise your password. If you simply minimize that below the H digits, in effect, the simple botnet, it's actually do it within the less than 2 weeks. May crack your password. And a password, primarily the reason why password is cracked, it's normally either email or social accounts. It's to steal your identity. Because there are a lot of bad things which bad guys can do with a stolen identity. Yeah, that's the one. All right. Okay. So make sure you keep your password really secret. Don't share it to anyone. Don't make it associated to you directly. Do not place it on a yellow sticker and keep it on your PC, on your laptop, like I believe the many people do, at least you've seen many people do. If you're doing that, stop doing this right now. If you store that on a paper version, make sure you store that in a place no one can easily access to. Make sure it will be complex enough. My personal recommendation is to play with the formats when you use no capital letters in order not to segregate different words which can be finally associated to you. Make it all the either capital or smaller letters. It will make it difficult. And try to use option of two-way authentication when it's possible. Because honestly, the one-time password thing or any type of two-layer identity check is probably so far is one of the most reliable ways to protect your password and protect your credential and your assets in the internet. Password management. So my recommendation to start look at and try at least a few times and get used to use the compilators, the password managers, the generator of the password. It might help you because I believe everybody facing the same challenge when after 6 months of changing your password, likely you're back to the first version. The most likely. People are people, it's a normal thing. Okay, very important thing. In many cases, your password is already compromised, you just don't know it. I highly recommend to use the link on that slide. The slides will be available after the presentation, so you may access to that and check that link. Just go check your credentials if your password being compromised or not. If it is, please change it immediately. And once again, my recommendation to clearly know how many assets you have, how many social networks you're using, how many email accounts you have, how many online banking accounts or any other accounts which you could use, any online assets. Just make sure you remember all of them and make sure you properly audit them every month to understand if your password is safe, when last time you changed it, and is your password strong enough. Web browsing, one of my favorite things. How many of you believe that web browsing is anonymous? In reality, it doesn't. I mean, the way browser built is actually it built in order to generate massive amount of the big data which needed by the companies who produce web browsers. There are not many of them in the world, but their main business is not a search. Their main business is big data and advertising, which is based on a big data analytics. So make sure you understand how your browser works in terms of the settings, to minimize exposure of the personal data you use. Location, name and addresses, devices on the local network, your own computer hardware, but primarily I think the names of the devices and locations. Two main things which can be used in different bad ways by the guys with the bad intentions. All right. Very important things about the web browsing, or the safe web browsing. Make sure you monitoring all the messages we're saying about the recent changes and upgrades, the proper ones, because in the most of cases, all of them are related to close the breaches capability or breaches potential. So please update it on a regular basis once it's offered by a manufacturer of the browser. Make sure that you don't follow the very simple and very emotional habit by click to every link which looks very attractive to click to. Better copy-paste it to the browser or try to see the URL. Make sure that you treat most of the links you receive as suspicious. Make sure you make few simple things. You double-check the spelling of the name of the website you're about to access to. It might misspell by 2 letters, and it's already a red flag to you. Make sure that URL is not too short. The most likely it's a red flag as well. And make sure you're using your common sense to understand why you want to click that. Is it really something what you would do without receiving that suspicious message with a link? Okay. Very important thing is quite often when you're using especially entertainment websites, you're receiving the message that your browser, your plugin, or your system is not up to requirements of carry on with the browser. Ignore that. In a majority of cases, it's a red flag. It might be phishing trick in a majority of cases, because you're supposed to do all these updates through all the frameworks you have. Would it be updates of the store of the operation system you do, or updates of your browser, or updates which you find in yourself on a manufacturer website, but definitely not that somebody proposed you in order to drive your emotional desire to carry on with the entertainment exercise you had that moment. Make sure you pay attention to 2 very simple things. You see if a connection you just got is secured, so it uses HTTPS, and there is a green sign of locker, that means it's a safe connection. If it's not existing, please treat the website as a suspicious. Be very careful what you click, what you open, what you deciding to download. And the most important one, on top of that, in order to, if you will back up all your understanding of those threats and all those potential exposures, just make any antivirus which you like, but just make sure it's properly back you up with the stop malicious activities which might be missed by you when you're browsing the internet. Email. I think alongside with the social networks is likely the most vulnerable part. Oh, sorry about that. So email. How many emails a day average person receiving now? I assume at least 50. Of course, 90%, if 99 of them are kind of spam, but most of us still pay attention to that. We still at least look at that, at least briefly, from corner to corner to understand what is it about. And if email well done, if it's well done to attract our attention, then most likely we open that. When we open that, what we're going to look at? We're going to look at either they asking us for the second step to open a file, or click the link, and both of them must be super suspicious to you. So don't do that. Make sure that you will never use any type of corporate-style email when you register to the public accounts, because it may expose your university, it may expose the company you will work for, or your parents or your family business. Very important thing is, when you're dealing with the emails, is be careful how you're treating the minimization of the spam you're receiving. Because once you keep receiving a lot of emails repeatedly, you won't unsubscribe. Make sure you're clear about how you unsubscribe from that. It also could be very famous phishing trick to force people with a continuous spam to unsubscribe from that. Social media security. 100% of this audience using social media. And if we think for a second, just step back, that social media is not the way we're having fun and connecting to each other. In reality, it's infrastructure of today and only infrastructure for tomorrow. If we think for a second what social media play as a role for us today, it will be, and it's vulnerable, it will be more scary when you understand what role it will play tomorrow. It's clear that social media will become a television of the future, of the next few years. We already see that, for example, in the United States, that some very popular live news already moving completely to Snapchat. They're terminating their live broadcasting on TV, they're moving to Snapchat. And that will carry on. In fact, YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, they're televisions of the future. They're trading platforms of the future. And they're vulnerable because they drive emotional attachment. It's very easy to provoke, be a victim for those who can use social engineering in order to you to act an appropriate way. Just two things I want to say about social media. Treat social media still, with all this exposure and happiness about how many followers you have on Instagram, still treat it on things which normally parents say to kids. Try to minimize your circle with those who you know in real life. Of course, it's not applicable for adults, but it has common sense. When people not just starting conversation to you, but they want you to do something, think twice. What is the motivation behind that? Why are they doing that? Because in reality, social media currently is the fastest growing platform for the scams and the social engineering-based frauds. Social engineering. Do you know that what's the weakest element of every cybersecurity system, solution, protection? Any idea? It's actually people, users. And this is absolute fact. And the reason for that is very simple. People are people. People are not machines who can react on a certain protocols. People can be misled or forced to inappropriate action by other people. So social engineering is a true base of cyber criminals. They clearly understand the psychology. They clearly understand the working routine and lifestyle on the region they operate in at. They know how to properly pitch each of you in order to take an appropriate action. I can give you just a couple of examples. Actually, examples from personal experience. One of my relatives became, a year ago, a victim of cyber criminals who actually make her bank account empty. And it's been no hacker attack. It's been no malicious software. No, it's been true social engineering. The cyber criminals been monitoring, similar to Dubizzle, peer-to-peer selling platform. The lady been posting there they wanted to sell something. She got a call from a nice gentleman who really sounded like he's in rush, very busy one. And he said, I really like what you're selling. I want to make sure that you will not sell it to anyone. I want to reserve that, which is quite a normal practice. And he said, I'm so busy. you know, I will not pay you cash. Don't you mind? I will send you right now 20% of the amount to your banking cards, which is easy. I mean, bank transfer of card to card is actually goes in many countries very fast, literally seamlessly, real time. So she got it, and guy never showed up. After midnight, he gave her a call and said, oh, sorry, I've been so busy. Sorry for waking you up. And, you know, I just transferred you the remaining amount of money, and I will pick up the thing you're selling tomorrow. But actually, you know what I realized? I pushed the button twice, and you received double amount. Can we send it back? She said, yes, for sure. Can we do it now? Yes. And she been sleepy, not focused. And what's happened, word by word, this guy forced her to tell her one-time password, which just showed up as a text message on her phone. Within the fraction of a minute, her banking account's been empty. And that's a real story. This is how it works. So make sure you will never, ever, when you receive a call from anyone who's saying, I'm your telecom provider, I'm updating the profile. What's your date of birth? What's your passport number? Make sure you will tell it's all in my profile. I will just come in person and do it. The same for the bank and the same for anything. Never share your personal and sensitive data. Your identity may be stolen, and it has many different ways how that may harm you and people around you. Second story, memory stick. Imagine the corporation who invested millions of dollars into cybersecurity protection. It's well protected, different layers of protection on a hardware, software. The employees who operate cybersecurity, they're super professionals. But can you imagine the very simple situation? On a front desk, there is always a little crowd of people who are waiting for somebody to pick them up to get into the office. One gentleman asking a receptionist, excuse me, I'm coming here for a job interview, meeting your HR. Here is a memory stick. Can you please print out my CV? Sure. Because people are kind. Done. Malware is incepted. The same second. The entire job and spending money of the corporation just been ruined by that. By simple social engineering trick. So make sure you're suspicious enough and you don't want to become a victim. You're knowing the basic tricks. Phishing. This is probably the hardest thing when it even comes not with the social engineering, but completely with a scam and a, if you will, substitution of how the web pages, either mobile or desktop, look like. Just think for a second. I'm sorry, resolution is not good here, it's better. It's better there. Which one, right or left, is real? Which one is fake? Which one is fake? Left? So probably 50-50 opinions. It's exactly what I'm saying. It's very hard to understand. In fact, the real one is left, the right one is fake. But in reality, it's very hard to understand. So back to what I said before, make sure you double check the website address. You check the security connection. You make sure it's secure connection in both ways. You make sure that there is no misspelling. And make sure they will not ask you something which you've never been asked before while visiting that site. Okay, so phishing. It's pretty much related to email security, so make sure you will not click anything, cannot open anything with being happy you received something. The most likely when you receive something you've been not asked for, you don't really need it. This is the reality. So make sure you behave like a very clever, very self-confident and adult person. Think twice before open something or click something. Make sure you will make a spell check. Make sure you treat the messages on a social network only on a way and a paradigm you really expect it to. Don't overreact on the messages where you have some proposition you need to react to immediately. And don't believe there are offers which are too sweet to be true, right? Like if somebody will offer you to enter your information to become one of the attendees for the 1 million dirham lottery, I would say I would be suspicious to that. For me, it sounds like a famous, it calls Nigerian scam, because they've been very famous in the 90s, been first scammers and first social engineering kind of features when they used to say, send emails to the people saying like, actually one of your far, far away relatives just gave you $50 million, but they're locked. To unlock them, we need to pay taxes, only 2,000, so please transfer immediately. So the most likely is that scenario, so don't go for that. And make sure that all the offers you receive are realistic, don't overreact on them. Everybody fancy to get iPhone X. Don't believe it costs below 100 dirhams. It's very expensive things. So don't click on that offer. Don't send any money there. Don't fill any sensitive or personal information on such an offering. Okay, my favorite thing. Sorry. All right. Smartphone is likely where we spend maybe 80% of our time while we're browsing internet, using application, but being a part of the digital and connected world. I do believe that majority of the audience, most of the time, has a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth actually switched on. How many of you have it open to anyone? A lot. How many of you are ready to share your location and be open for downloading apps which can be pushed to you or any type of connection? A lot. This is a bad practice, very bad practice. I'm not sure if you heard, but it's recently been discovered one potential next big way of sophisticated attacks, which is expected to make all the smartphones of the world using Bluetooth one big botnet, which they can, through that malware, communicate to each other. It's not here yet, but the concept is already proven. It could be real. So my recommendation, make sure you understand the settings of your smartphone and be very responsive for that. If communication is needed, use it when it's needed. Don't open it to anybody, because in fact, your smartphone is your life. You have everything there. Just think for a second. Your photos. Most of you keeping your password logins exactly somewhere hidden in smartphone. You believe it's hidden. They don't. You have your emails. A lot of sensitive information. You have access to your bank accounts. So protect it. It's a very similar analogy if you have your door is always open and you put the banner on the front, I'm not home for the next 2 weeks. So make sure you're very responsive for that. I think that pretty much from my side on the tips, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Garib on the stage.